Today on the Reefer, we're going to go over how to make your own saltwater and how to do a water change. Hi guys, welcome to the Reefer, where we talk about all topics related to the Reef Aquarium hobby. If that sounds like something interesting to you, please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss our future videos. Now, to make your saltwater, you want to fill a container or bucket of your choice with RODI water. I use a 44-gallon Brute trash can and like to make a good-sized batch of water to use over a couple months. If you have a smaller tank, a 5-gallon bucket should suffice. In my opinion, the salt of your choice should be the salt that has the closest parameters to your tank. As I've said in my other videos, I don't pay much attention to calcium and magnesium. Yes, they are important. However, for my previous testing, as long as I'm dosing 2-part equally, my calcium should be correct if my alkalinity is correct. And as long as I'm performing regular water changes, my magnesium should be fine. Most, if not all, reef salts have a high level of magnesium. From my understanding, the ESV Bionic 2-part that I dose also has some magnesium in it, although I'm not 100% on that. So here are the two brands of salt that I'm able to source locally. Unfortunately, both brands contain high levels of alk, so around 11 alk at a salinity of 1.026. On the other hand, I like to keep my alk at around 8.5, so there is a substantial difference there. This difference prevents me from performing too large of a water change, as I don't want my alk to swing too much. Ideally, I would love to try Fritz Pro Salt because its alk is similar to mine. Maybe sometime next year. Now, I think the hardcore reefers will purchase salts that mix at lower levels of calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity. And then what they'll do after they have got their water to 1.026 is they will add supplements of calcium, magnesium, and alkalinity to match the parameters in their tank. I think it is safe to say that most of you are like me, and that it's just a bit too much work and cost. Between reef crystals and Red Sea Coral Pro, I find the Red Sea does dissolve faster and it seems to require less salt to get to 1.026. In this video, I am using the reef crystals because I would like to finish what is left in the bucket. Once I've made my RODI water, I will scoop the salt out of the dry container before putting it into the water. I find the water splashes as the salt gets poured in, and if I pour the salt directly from my cup, it might cause my cup to get wet, and that moisture may transfer into the bucket of salt. So it's very important that you keep your salt dry as it can clump. Because I'm mixing water in a large Brute container, I use an old power head to help mix the water. I also place a heater in the water to warm it up to help dissolve the salt, and depending on the size of the water change, to maintain the water temperature in the tank. If you're only mixing, say, 5 gallons of water, you can use an air stone and manually stir to help dissolve the salt. The final thing to do is to check your salinity. It's a good idea to get a refractometer, as there is always room for human error. The salt may also be inconsistent from batch to batch, so you don't want to end up in a situation where you're doing a water change with water at a salinity of 1.020 or 1.030. And that's it for how to make your own salt water. So next we're going to talk about water changes. Why do we perform water changes? In my opinion, water changes in the saltwater hobby typically serve a very different purpose than in freshwater. In a freshwater tank, typically the water change is performed to remove built-up nitrates. So a freshwater aquarist will perform a 50% or larger water change to reduce nitrate levels. If nitrates were 50, the 50% water change would reduce them to 25. In saltwater, we do not typically perform such substantial water changes for a multitude of reasons. Number 1, salt is expensive. Number 2, we have to be concerned about parameters such as alkalinity swinging too much from too large of a water change. And number 3, there are other methods of exporting nitrates and phosphates, such as using a protein skimmer growing macroalgae, using an algae scrubber, and even the coral in your tank are going to soak up phosphates and nitrates for growth. This doesn't mean that a reef aquarium might not perform a large water change, especially if they're trying to get some type of contaminant out of the water. I believe a regular water change is performed for different reasons other than exporting some type of nutrient or contaminant. I think the main reason for performing water changes in a reef aquarium is to help replenish major and minor elements that have been used by the coral and that are not covered in two-part dosing. Can you think of any other reasons a reefer may perform a water change? Please let me know in the comments below. So what percentage of your tank water should you change and how often should you do it? This is up to you. Like I said above, if your reason for water changes is to replenish the trace elements in your tank, it is not imperative that you do it. However, it should improve or maintain your coral appearance and growth over time. I personally perform a 10 to 12 gallon water change every 3 weeks. That is my goal. Sometimes it ends up being longer, but I find 3 weeks is very achievable in terms of finding the time to do so and in terms of costs. 10 to 12 gallons of water is roughly between 10 to 15% of the total water volume in the system. If my nitrates were 50, it would be 45 after a 10% water change. As you can see, there's not much of an export benefit there. In a Nano Reef video by Jake Adams, Mike performs weekly water changes of 5 gallons in a 30-gallon system. That is roughly 17% per week. I'll post a link to that video in the description below. So take your pick, guys. Mike's system is definitely more beautiful than mine. Well, that's my take on water changes. Do you agree or disagree with my thoughts? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and I'll see you guys at the same time next week. You've reached the end of the video. If you did enjoy the video, please subscribe and hit that notification bell.